What's more unsettling than being paid and still feeling unsafe? I've worked with hundreds of clients over the years, and most were kind, respectful, even sweet. But every once in a while, someone walks in with a smile and leaves behind a shadow. Creepy doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, it lingers, it crosses lines while pretending not to. I'm not here to scare anyone. I'm here to tell the truth. Because knowing where the danger hides is the first step to protecting yourself. If you've ever felt unsafe in silence, comment "safe" below. You're not alone. 1. The philosopher with a dark side. He came highly recommended by someone I trusted, well-dressed, well-read, and incredibly polite. At first glance, he didn't set off any alarms. In fact, he asked if I liked poetry. He quoted Rilke between sips of red wine, spoke softly about beauty and loneliness, and called me remarkable in a way that felt oddly sincere. It wasn't until the second glass that his tone shifted. "Do you think pain," he asked, "can ever be beautiful if you understand it enough?" I tilted my head, unsure if this was a philosophical question or something more. He smiled and continued, "I think real connection begins where comfort ends." That was when I noticed the drawer slightly open beside him. Inside, a rope neatly coiled, deliberately placed. My heartbeat didn't quicken, but my body knew. Something wasn't right. He never touched it. He didn't have to. His words were testing me like a predator gauging how close it could get before the animal ran. I took a breath, kept my voice even. "I don't do anything involving restraint. Ever." He shrugged, like it didn't matter, like I'd passed some kind of test. But I didn't stay long after that. Some men use force, others use charm, layered with intellect and praise. The danger isn't always in what they do, it's in what they're preparing you to accept. And when someone starts justifying your discomfort with poetry, that's not art. That's manipulation dressed in velvet. 2. The generous man with strings attached. Not long after that, I met a man whose kindness arrived wrapped in gold foil and quiet expectation. The first time we met, he handed me an envelope before I even sat down. It was thick, crisp, and sealed with a gold sticker. "I believe in paying well," he said, like it was a moral statement. I thanked him, genuinely. Kindness, especially up front, always softens the room. But then he leaned in. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to. I just ask for one thing, your honesty. Completely unfiltered." It sounded fair, respectful even. But by our third meeting, his generosity started to carry weight. Every gift came with a story. A necklace with the line, "My mother gave this to my first girlfriend. She broke it. I want you to have it now." A silk scarf, worn by someone I once loved. "She reminded me of you." It didn't feel like romance. It felt like inheritance, like I was being threaded into a history I didn't belong to. When I hesitated to accept one of his gifts, he looked hurt. "I thought we had something different," he said. "I thought you were more sincere." That's when I realized I wasn't being paid. I was being recruited into a role I never agreed to play. Generosity, when pure, feels light. It uplifts. But when it becomes a lever, when kindness is wielded as proof of superiority, it stops being a gift. It becomes a trap. Some men offer money to feel powerful. Others offer sentiment to feel needed. Both can suffocate you, just in different packaging. 3. The man who waited in silence. Then there was the one who never rang the bell. Just waited, wordless, outside the door. I usually know when someone's early. There's a knock, a message, a presence. But he never announced himself. He just stood outside the door, quietly, waiting. The first time, I thought it was a coincidence. The second time, I started checking the peephole before opening. "The way you open the door," he said one night. That moment, it's my favorite part. His voice was soft, almost reverent. but something about it unsettled me. How he noticed small things I didn't mean to show. The way I tucked my hair behind my ear. How I glanced at my watch. Things I'd done without thinking. But he remembered them all. Inside, he never broke any rules. He didn't touch without asking. He didn't raise his voice. But he also didn't speak unless I did. He just stared, as if memorizing everything. It wasn't fear that crept in. It was a slow erosion of ease. I found myself speaking more, trying to fill the silence, trying to control the mood. That's when I knew. I was doing the emotional labor for both of us. The final time, I changed the room last minute. He found it anyway. I was watching. He texted. "You looked nervous." That was the last message I allowed. Some men cross boundaries with words, others do it by withholding them. Silence, when paired with surveillance, isn't stillness, it's control. And the scariest part isn't that they're watching, it's that they want you to know they are. 4. The smile that never moved. After him came a man who smiled too much and too steadily. Like someone who'd practiced in the mirror, not because he was happy, but because he didn't know what else to do. He smiled the moment I walked in. Wide, white, and unwavering. At first, I thought it was nerves. Some clients smile too much when they're unsure. But as the night went on, the smile didn't change. Not when I made a joke. Not when I asked a question. Not even when I paused to say I needed a break. "You're doing great," he said, still smiling. "Just keep going." That's when I realized he wasn't reacting. He was observing. His smile wasn't connection. It was a mask. He sat motionless, barely blinking, watching every move I made as if he were studying a screen. And even when I asked if everything was okay, he only nodded, eyes fixed, grin untouched. It wasn't aggression. It wasn't even inappropriate behavior. But it felt wrong in a way I couldn't explain. As if I wasn't in the room with a person, but with something rehearsed. Like he'd memorized how to look normal without ever feeling it. By the time I left, I felt drained. Not from effort, but from trying to make a human connection with someone who offered nothing in return. Just that smile, hanging in the air like a painting. Some men try to impress. Others try to control. But the most unsettling are the ones who disappear behind politeness, who offer presence but no humanity. Because when someone looks at you and never really sees you, you start to question whether you're even there at all. 5. The man trying to recreate her. And then there was the one who didn't want me at all. He wanted someone who was already gone. He booked me 3 times in 1 month. Polite, quiet, and easy to talk to. There was nothing unusual until the 3rd appointment. That night, he brought a folded photograph and laid it gently on the table. "She had your hair," he said. "Same color, same waves. That's why I chose you." I looked down. It was a picture of a woman, maybe in her 30s, smiling at the beach. There was nothing striking about her appearance except how closely she resembled me. Not exactly, but enough. "I was with her for 7 years," he continued, "but she's gone now. I think about her every day." He didn't ask me to role play. He didn't make any demands. But everything after that moment felt different. Every compliment was laced with nostalgia. Every silence was heavy with memory. "You laugh like she did," he said at one point. That laugh used to wake me up in the morning. I started feeling like a placeholder. Not a person, but a projection, something to press into the outline of someone else's absence. When I declined his next booking, he was confused. "I didn't do anything wrong," he messaged. No, he hadn't. But sometimes harm comes quietly, through longing, through substitution. There's a fine line between mourning and remaking. When a man turns you into someone he's lost, he doesn't see you at all, only the space you temporarily fill. And you can't build a connection when you're standing in the shadow of someone else's memory. 6. The quiet man with cold eyes. Not long after, I met a man who broke no rules. said nothing wrong, yet managed to fill the room with a silence so heavy, I still remember how small I felt in it. He didn't say much when we met, just a polite hello and a nod toward the couch. That's not unusual. Some clients prefer calm over chatter, but this wasn't calm. This was something else. I spoke first. Would you like to talk a little or just relax? He gave a small shrug, then stared. Not at my face, not at my body, just vaguely in my direction. Eyes wide open, mouth closed, hands resting neatly on his knees, as if he were waiting for something, but wouldn't say what. The room felt heavy. I adjusted my tone, my posture, even my breath trying to read him. But there was no feedback. No nod, no smile, no curiosity. Only watching. Silent, still, and utterly unreadable. At one point, I reached for my glass of water. His eyes followed the motion so intently it made me pause mid-sip. You okay? I asked. He nodded once. You're very composed, he said finally. That's rare. The compliment didn't land. It felt clinical, like a line from an observation report, not connection, just analysis. I finished early, citing a sudden headache. He didn't protest. He barely moved. Some men cross boundaries with words, others with touch, but there are some who make you feel small simply by being near because their presence doesn't invite you in. It swallows the room whole. And the danger isn't that they say too much. It's that they make you carry the entire experience. Alone. 7. The one who wanted to save me. But the one who left the deepest bruise never raised his voice, never asked for more. He just offered help like it was a leash disguised as a gift. He was younger than most, mid-40s, confident, well-spoken. He didn't flirt. He didn't stare. He asked about my childhood. That was the first red flag. We were only minutes into our first meeting when he leaned forward and said, "You're too smart for this. What happened?" I laughed it off, tried to redirect. But he stayed there, hovering over my past, trying to mine it for pain. Was it money? Family? A bad relationship? He wasn't trying to connect. He was trying to diagnose me. When I didn't offer the confession he wanted, he shifted tactics. I could help you, he said. You don't belong here. I see potential. He listed resources, classes, contacts, jobs he could help me get. All under the condition that I saw him again exclusively. That's when I understood. He didn't see me as a person. He saw me as a project. Someone he could redeem. Someone who would make him feel noble. It wasn't kindness. It was control in a softer costume. When I declined his offer, he looked hurt. You don't have to be proud, he said. You just have to be honest. But here's the truth. No woman needs to be rescued by a man who can't see her dignity without imagining her broken. Because saviors aren't always selfless. Sometimes they're just men who've confused power with purpose and want to rewrite your story so they can feel better about their own. 8. The man who said he wanted nothing. And just when I thought I'd gotten better at reading between the lines, I met the one who said all the right things and still left something wrong in the air. He introduced himself with a gentle smile and said, I'm not like other clients. I just want to talk. That's not unusual. Some men are lonely, some are shy. But there was something practiced in the way he said it, like he'd rehearsed the line 100 times before walking in. We sat down. I poured a glass of wine. He asked about my favorite books, my dreams, my real life. At first, it was refreshing. No pressure, no assumptions. But the questions kept coming, layered deeper each time. Do you ever think about leaving this work? Would you still want to see me if I stopped paying? What would you be doing if you had a different childhood? He wasn't curious. He was searching for proof that I wanted more, that I was secretly waiting for someone like him. When I gave neutral answers, he looked disappointed. I thought we were connecting, he said. I thought you saw me. That's when I understood. He didn't come for nothing. He came to feel special for being the one who didn't ask for anything. But withholding expectations isn't generosity when you quietly expect emotional intimacy in return, when silence is used as bait, when performance is called authenticity. I never saw him again. But his words stayed with me, because some men don't touch you to cross boundaries. They do it by asking for your soul while pretending to ask for nothing, and the heaviest weight to carry is the one they swear isn't there. The danger that doesn't shout. I didn't share these stories for sympathy. I shared them because not every threat arrives with raised voices or obvious harm. Sometimes it comes dressed in charm, in stillness, in generosity that leans just a little too far. In this work, fear rarely kicks the door in. It drips in slowly through withheld eye contact, through lingering questions, through smiles that never quite reach the eyes. And by the time you recognize it, your instincts have already been dismissed in the name of politeness. But what I've learned, what I hold on to is this. Your discomfort is not an inconvenience. It's a signal. And you don't owe anyone your silence just because they were nice. Boundaries don't make you cold. They make you safe. So if you've ever left a room wondering if you were overreacting, if you were too sensitive, let me say this clearly. You weren't. You were surviving. You don't need to explain your fear. You just need to trust it. If this spoke to you, like and subscribe, and comment "safe" if you believe boundaries are power.